So we talked about dynamic blocks. What I want to talk about right now is tool palettes. And so I don't know if you guys have ever used tool palettes before. That was a tool palette that I used to talk about. That's where I got the door and the car and the commode and everything like that. That was using a tool palette. But one thing that's super cool about tool palettes is if I go to view tool palettes, AutoCAD gives me all of these tool palettes by default, but I can actually create my own tool palette. If I right click anywhere kind of in the gray area, won't work if I'm on a block, but as long as I don't have something selected, I can say new palette, and I can make a palette just for specific blocks. So for doors, what's awesome is, check this out. I can be in a drawing and I can grab that, pull it into here, and I now have that block. I can grab this, pull it into here, and I've now got that block. So I can come in here and grab all the different doors that I need, and I've got them in here. Then I can go into a totally blank drawing. So let's go to a completely blank drawing that has no blocks in it whatsoever. And I can bring this door in. And one cool thing is, not only did it bring that block in, because when I dragged it off of that drawing, it was on a specific layer, it came with its own layer. I can change it if I want to, but it knew it was supposed to be on that doors layer. Another cool thing that you can do is, if you're in the Design Center, let's go to Open Drawings, let's go to Duplex and look at the blocks in the duplex. Let's say I need one for windows. I can highlight all of these windows. Once they're highlighted, I can right click and say create a tool palette. And now I've got a tool palette over here with nothing but windows. I can right click on any one of those blocks, go to properties, and I can tell my window that you're always going to come in on the windows layer, and say okay. Go back to drawing 2. I don't have a windows layer and I don't have any windows. I just have a door. But I can grab this window now and bring it in. And it came with its own windows layer, so that's how I was telling it to do that. As opposed to this one is just a window. It came in on layer 0 because it didn't have another layer to be on. It was created on layer 0. So this is a great way to be able to come in here and actually organize your blocks. You can have a separate tab for different types of blocks that you might have. Another cool thing that you can do with tool palettes is, I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to call it cool stuff because I'm going to put all kinds of cool stuff in here. I can grab a dimension, slide it over here, linear dimension. Now when I come in here, I can use that dimension tool. It keeps the same style as far as the text height, the dimension style, all that stuff I set up in my dimension style, tick marks and whatever. And it knew it was supposed to be on the dimensions layer, so it put itself on the dimensions layer. I can come in here and I can grab a line. So this right here, it's on the walls layer. Drag it over. It just says line, but I'm going to rename that walls. I'll grab a couple of more. This was on the rod layer. This was on the shelf layer. I'm going to go back to this blank drawing here. Not only can I draw a wall, draw a line on the walls layer, it created that layer in my drawing. Rod, look at this. If I click on that arrow, these are all of my main draw commands. So I can draw a circle on the rod layer. I can draw whatever, a polyline. It's all one piece, and it came in on the shelves layer. So this is a really sweet way to be able to, you could even just take some time. If there's layers that you know that you use all the time, you can set them up in this tool palette and then just draw straight out of the tool palette. And you can take this tool palette with you anywhere you want to go by right-clicking, customize palettes. There's my cool stuff. I'm going to right-click and I'm going to say export. I would suggest making a folder for tool palettes so you can find them. But it's going to export it as a .xtp, which is an exported tool palette. And that way, if you ever lose it, you can look at your .xtp. You can go import that XTP file with you. Another cool thing that you can do is, let's come in here and turn this off. And I'm going to set, do I have a hatch hidden? Ooh, stars, I've done this before. So I'm going to create a hatch pattern. My favorite hatch pattern. Look how cute this is. But the scale is at 1. Let's set that to 15. Look at how cute this is. There's a star pattern. I can grab that hatch. I can slide it over. And now that hatch exists there. All I have to do is click on it, drop it inside of here, and it finds the boundaries. It already came on the color that it needed, and it has itself set to the scale of 15. So if there's a hatch that you use all the time, you can put hatches in there. Another cool thing that you can do with tool palettes is you can right click, you can add a separator. So if you need to separate, you know, your dimensions from your whatever. So those are my kind of draw commands, my hatch down here, my dimensions up there. So you could put a little divider in just visually. But anyway, tool palettes are super, super cool. It's like it's just another step on how you can use blocks. If you've got blocks that you use all the time, what's nice about it is it stays open. So you can go from drawing to drawing and it's just right there. Stays open. Instead of the design center, you don't have as much flexibility and cool stuff that you can do with the design center, but you constantly have to open it and go find whatever drawing that was and go do whatever. So anyway, with tool palettes, you don't have to do that. So now that we know about that, when we come over here to this drawing, our op-amp symbols, you have to be sure to save it. But I've already made a couple of blocks here, so I'm going to create a new palette. Call it op-amp symbols. Drag and drop this in here. Drag and drop this in here. And really, you could even like maybe put them on the symbols layer so you're sure that they come in. Like you saw my symbols were on, some of them were on the wrong layer. So you can drag and drop them over here. And then when you get ready to use this drawing, you just grab them out of the palette. You can use them. So that's one step that it's going to ask you to do. After you make all of these, it's going to tell you how to make that dynamic, putting that flip on there. And then at some point, I don't know when it says it, but at some point it tells you to create, I don't know at what point in these instructions, somewhere in the instructions it tells you to create a tool palette and go grab those symbols. So go ahead and do that now, like after you make your symbols.